Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's Terry Walsh. It's Wednesday, August 12th. I'm glad to be with you today to give you an update on things that are going on around the villages. I hope everyone's having a great day today. It's a little bit cooler, but we've had some big rainstorms in the last couple of days. Both campuses have had quite some torrential downpours, some electrical issues and flashes here and there, particularly on the Sunset Hills campus. We've had some leaking roofs on both campuses. We lost a little bit of the roof shingles in particular on the Fountain View Assisted Living Building in Sunset Hills. So we've had a great few days here with all the severe weather that we've had in the St. Louis area. And so our maintenance crews and contractors and all are very busy right now trying to get things back in shape before the next rainstorms come. But it's been a little bit of a challenge the last several days. But overall, our team is not foreign to that sort of a problem all the way around, and so a lot of activity is happening now to try to get our buildings back into a protected status before the next round of showers and rain and storms and things come on. But overall, your prayers are certainly welcome to help strengthen our teams and their work and to guide their hands in order to do the best they can to continue. But overall, other than the storms, things are going well. You should know that overall, and I think you do know this, for the last couple of weeks, last 3 weeks, I think, in Chesterfield, in the last 2 weeks plus in Sunset Hills, we've been at the 00 mark. And if you don't remember what that is, we've had no residents currently with COVID-19 who are currently positive with COVID-19. And we have no employees on either campus that are currently positive with COVID-19. Now, we've had obviously some of each in the past, but it's been, I think, at least 2 to 2.5 months in Chesterfield with no residents at any level of care with COVID-19, and 2.5 to 3 months in Sunset Hills with no residents at any level of care with COVID-19. That means no residents in over 2 months on either campus, whether it be in independent living or in assisted living or in our care centers, have had positive tests for COVID-19. What a great blessing that's been for all of us. And we are very blessed to be able to report that to you. And I want to thank all of you for all of your continued vigilance with all of the protocols that we've been asking you to do for the last several months. So thank you again for all that you're doing. You're keeping yourselves protected. I know you're educating your visitors with the protocols that need to happen when they come visit you on campus. And I also know that you're doing a great job when you leave the campus to go on errands that you go to the grocery store or the pharmacy or wherever you might go, or also to visit your friends and family in their own homes. You're doing a great job at maintaining your vigilance with all of those protocols, and we know what those are. Of course, those are wearing a mask, a well-fitting face mask, whenever you leave your living quarters, which means including in the hallways and the common areas of the campuses. But also when you get in your car and you go somewhere, you go to visit somebody, you go on an errand, anywhere else, you're doing a great job. I think it's kind of become a great routine now that this protective action that you're displaying has become common, and that's a wonderful thing for us to see. Let's keep it going. We know that in the communities all around us that COVID-19 is on the rise. So we are kind of in some little oases on our campuses where we don't have COVID-19, which is a wonderful thing to be able to say, but it's always a risk and it could change at any moment. So we cannot let up our guard on all of our protocols. But I want to tell you how proud I am of you as residents, and you and your families and your friends and everybody that you're around for doing what you need to do to try to remain protected. Our employees as well. So it's very difficult for employees to avoid COVID-19 when they have to leave the campus, leave our oasis, and leave the campus to go home, to go to the grocery store, to the gas station, to visit, even be with their own families in their own home, and those family members may have been in other places also and potentially exposed to risk with COVID-19. And so it is no small feat for our employees to be in the state that they're in right now with nobody currently being positive for COVID-19 and haven't been for about 3 weeks now. So that's a wonderful thing for us to be able to say, and hopefully something that you're also proud of, that your employees that take care of you on campus every day, none of them have had any positive tests for COVID-19. Now, we do have a small number, about 3 on each campus, who are home while we're waiting for a test result, or they know that they've been around somebody that has had COVID-19. They don't have any symptoms yet, but until they're clear and we know that they don't have it, and we wait their 14 days or they get a test and come back negative, they do remain at home if they've been exposed, knowingly exposed, or have any symptoms, but none of them have come back positive for testing for COVID-19. But we still take those precautions just in case, because we don't want to bring it onto the campus unknowingly, and certainly not even if we do know it. So it's kind of a wonderful situation for us to be in, but it's very tenuous, as you would know, because the virus doesn't really care about our record. In fact, it would like to break our record for us, and we don't want that to happen. So I appreciate all that you do to help us with that track record on both campuses. It's not an easy thing to do. It's not what we wanted to live by when everybody came to Friendship Village. But now I think it's a good place to be in light of this situation all around us in the community, to be where we are on Friendship Village campuses as far as the COVID-19 situation goes. So I appreciate everything everybody's doing. Let's keep it up. We can't let up our guard now, not even for an instant. So please continue doing what you're doing. We do have our financial results for the first month of the fiscal year. As you may recall, our fiscal year, the year we start recounting everything as far as finances goes, started on July 1st. So we do have the results of the first month of the fiscal year, so July in. We didn't have a bad month. We didn't have the best month we've ever had. We've got 4 major factors working against us in terms of our financial performance at this moment in time, or factors in 4 major places. So they're all COVID related. One of the factors is in our independent living units. While we've had a lot of residents move in, those who have already deposited and were scheduled to move in, they've done that, and you've done that. Those of you who are listening who moved in recently, we appreciate the fact that you've joined us and you've joined our oasis of COVID-free environment here. But what has slowed down are the sales of other apartments where nobody has actually put down a deposit and certainly not scheduled to move in. Getting people to come to the campus to take a tour and decide if they want to live here has been a challenge for us, because getting them to the campus is a challenge. Making sure everybody's protected is a challenge. Even residents trying to sell their own homes and not wanting the general public from the community to even come into their own homes to look to see if they want to buy their house is a challenge. And then going through all of the motions that have to take place to decide to join Friendship Village and to move in here has just been restricted because of all of the constraints that COVID-19 has put on us. So we're not at the occupancy that we want to be. We're around 90%, maybe even a little less than 90% right now, because of our continuing sales being negatively influenced by COVID-19. So that's been a challenge for us. In our assisted living building, particularly in Sunset Hills, and you're getting your new one in Chesterfield, obviously, but in Sunset Hills, we've had residents move in, and that's great. We love that. Those are people who've already deposited and moved in. But again, the slowdown has been in giving tours and showing potential residents the building, because the state rule won't allow us to bring in visitors into the assisted living building. It's a licensed building. And so the sales have slowed down a little bit, and being able to show people an apartment in our assisted living building has slowed, which means the move-in cycle has slowed, and our occupancy in assisted living isn't where we want it to be, and certainly not where it normally is, in the mid-90s normally, we're below 80, or not below 80, but below 90. We're in the 80% range, in mid 80s, and not where we want it to be. So that's been a little bit of a challenge for us also. And then in the care centers, as you know, there are severe restrictions or serious restrictions that Medicare and the state places on us in filling beds for occupancy in our care centers. So an example is a Medicare Part A patient who might come out of the hospital and require rehab for a hip replacement, for example, for a couple of weeks. Every one of those new patients or residents coming into the care center has to have a room all by themselves for 14 days. Well, you know, all of our rooms are 2-people rooms. And so when we have to give a new patient, Medicare Part A patient, a bed, then we can't use the second bed that's in the same room. So we are artificially restricted from filling all of our beds and getting our census up to where we're normally 95% filled in our care centers. So we're artificially restricted by COVID there, so our revenues have declined a little bit. Chesterfield has done better, but not because they're full necessarily, but because they do have rooms open. In fact, because they're not full, they do have rooms open for Medicare Part A, and so their Medicare Part A business in Chesterfield is actually doing well compared to budget. Overall occupancy is not where it normally is, but in terms of the Medicare business in Chesterfield, it is. In Sunset Hills, our Medicare business is not where it is budgeted to be, and that's because we have to, by state rules and the Medicare rules, leave a bed open in all those rooms until a resident is there for 14 days and shows that their quarantine essentially shows that they don't have COVID-19. So we're artificially restricted from reaching our normal occupancy. So those three things, those three levels of care and their occupancy has an impact on our financial performance. And the other thing that impacted us in July is and I've mentioned this before, we received some government stimulus money, some funding to cover some of our direct costs for COVID-19 in the past. Well, that money ran out in July, and then everything that we spend for the people who are screening and taking temperatures at the doors, and for all the hand sanitizer and all those things that we've been reimbursed from the government for, those stimulus funds expired and ran out, and so we ended up, we have to at this point pay for it directly ourselves. Now we have indications that there's going to be another round of stimulus funding coming to us, but by the time July ended, that did not come to us at that point, and so we have absorbed those costs because we have to keep doing those things to keep everybody safe and sanitized and everything else on our campuses. So we have eaten those costs generally in the month of July, and so that also impacted our financial position for that first month of the fiscal year. If we get money back from stimulus packages from the government, then that will reboost our performance in July. But overall, how we've done in July is Sunset Hills actually missed budget, but interestingly and coincidentally, missed budget by almost exactly the same amount of money we spent directly for the COVID expenses for July. So had we had the government stimulus money on time for July, Sunset Hills would have actually hit budget right on the money, which is a good thing even considering the census reductions that we've had in assisted living and in the care center and in independent living. We would have actually absorbed that and made up for that if it had not been for our direct responsibility for those COVID expenses that we didn't get government money for. Hopefully we will. In Chesterfield actually had a fairly good month, mostly because the care center in Chesterfield did better on their Medicare business than was budgeted to do. So Chesterfield had a pretty positive month and actually beat their budget by about $80,000 or so in Chesterfield. So congratulations to Chesterfield. But as I've expressed before and for the last several months, this is going to be a bumpy year for us financially, and we know that. We're actually budgeted to lose money this year because of all the startup expenses that happen when we open a new building. Any of you on this video that are watching the video who have had a business of your own know that there are startup expenses when you open a new business. And so we have the same thing. We plan for it, we know it's going to happen, but it is going to happen, and we're fully expecting it to happen. But my goal as a CEO is to try to make that impact as small as possible, mitigate that impact, and try to do the best we can to not experience all of those expenses or the negative effects of the startup costs as much as possible, so that we can come out better than budget and better than we expected to. That's always my goal as a CEO. That's what we're going to continue to do and strive for. So we continue to work with our directors on both campuses, and Carmen Franzak is the interim executive director in Chesterfield, working with the directors on the Chesterfield campus and continuing constantly and continuously to try to find ways to be more efficient and to do things better where we are. So we are actually right now exploring how we might be able to do the screening at the doors more efficiently, and how we can do that if we're going to have to pay that bill now out of pocket versus government reimbursement. Then of course we want to be as efficient as we possibly can. So we have a tiger team essentially working together right now to try to identify better ways to do that and do that more efficiently, so that we can not experience a negative impact any more than we have to keep you safe from COVID-19. But overall, we're in a very strong position. We're doing well. Our census is picking up. There is more activity in sales, not the activity we had before COVID ever started, of course, but it is beginning to pick up a little bit. You know, when we have a good story to tell, that nobody on our campus has COVID-19 and hasn't had it for quite some time, that's a great story to be able to tell prospective residents at all the levels of care, because there aren't very many senior living communities that can tell that story. So that's a positive for us. The challenge is getting that word out to people. And then of course the bigger challenge is trying to keep that record going, because it could change instantly. And that's what we have to try to continue to guard against. So that's our challenge. We haven't had the best first month of the year that we've ever had, certainly, but we've got a lot more year to go. I'm sure we'll do well, and we'll start building things back up. But I just want you to know that we're doing everything we can to have a good, strong year financially. We're on track, and hopefully if we get reimbursement from the government for those direct costs that we had in July for COVID-19, then we'll actually be back ahead of schedule again. But right now, we're right on the edge, and so I just want you to understand that and be aware of that. We're not swimming in money right now, and I don't know when we will be. Hopefully in the latter half of the year, but the first half of the year is going to be a little tight because of all the startup costs. In the latter half of the year, when the buildings are filling up, hopefully it'll self-correct. But at the first half of the year, we're going to be eating those startup costs. In terms of activities on the campus, the county and the state have ratcheted down a little bit again, retro back to some of the no visitor policies. So our care centers are not as open. Well, they weren't open in the buildings anyway, but even the window visits and the other visits that we've had have been scaled back significantly because of the state regulations and the continual spread of COVID-19 around the county and the state. Even though we don't have it at Sunset Hills or in Chesterfield on our campuses, we still have to follow the rules set by the greater government, the county government and the state government, because other people are having a problem. So we have to also live by those rules, and so we've had to kind of back up a little bit and reimpose some of those restrictions in our licensed buildings. And we've also had to back up and restrict some of our gathering policies in independent living to smaller numbers of people in the chapel or in the dining rooms or in other gatherings on campus, activities and such, to make sure that we don't violate the group size gatherings and the social distancing requirements and all those other things. So that's going to continue for a little while. I wish I could say it's all over the sun is shining, the clouds have parted, and COVID's all over, and we can be back to the normal Friendship Village that we all know and love. But we can't because we're not ready yet. But in the meantime, I will certainly take what we've got, and that's by having nobody with COVID-19 on either campus at this point, and that's a great place to be. I hope that you're doing well. The weather is kind of all over the map, as you know, and as I said right at the outset of this video, we did experience some storm damage on both campuses, some leaky roofs here and there, and some actually missing shingles in some places, and drains that were overwhelmed by the deluge of water that came with the rainstorm. So those all have to be fixed, but we don't have a lot of money to do that. Our budget is extremely tight with all of these things this year, and so those repairs are going to eat into the little bit of money that we did have set aside in our budget for this. So it's going to be a tight year. We're only in August. I'm kind of I would say I'm excited to see how this all turns out, but I'm not that excited. I'm looking forward to us having a good year, but we've got a lot of challenges ahead of us, and I appreciate your understanding and your indulging us to do the things that we have to do to try to keep us in a very strong financial position. Our investors are still very happy with everything we're doing. We're in much, much better shape than just about everybody else that they talk to, even nationwide. And so you should be proud of that. Overall, our staff is doing well. As you know, your resident satisfaction surveys that you completed last week, we should be getting the results of those in a couple of days, hopefully on Friday. When we get all that processed, we can report to you how you rated us as a group. Our employee satisfaction survey, actually today is the last day for employees to go online and offer their opinions of their satisfaction of working with Friendship Villages. And so it'll be a couple of weeks before we get the results back from that. And we'll let you know how that turned out as well. It's going to be interesting to see how COVID-19 has played into all of these measurements of satisfaction, both for employees and for residents, because this is obviously a different year. It's not a normal year. And so I'm interested to see how everybody feels about how it is being on Friendship Village, either as a resident or an employee in the COVID-19 world. It's going to be an interesting revelation, I think, to understand how everybody feels. But I hope they turned out well. I hope everybody is happy and satisfied. I know people are very happy with the food service. We're trying to get back into the dining rooms, at least tiptoe back in with small groups. I know Jim Hunzy in Sunset Hills is working on that. I know Manny in Chesterfield and the team there. You've already been in the large Chesterfield dining room and a little bit in the bistro there with space constraints and social distancing. And I hope that's been helpful for everybody, but we still have to be very careful about the risk of contracting COVID-19 from the employees that serve you in those dining rooms, as well as all of the other risk of just being in large groups that we have to maintain all of the state and county regulations on all that spacing and the occupancy levels in those groups. I hope everybody's doing well. I don't have much more to report at this point. I hope you have a great day, and I will talk to you again next week. Have a great afternoon, everybody. Thank you. Bye.